We are the painters of our world. We are creators. We decide what.
Welcome to another special edition of the Educate.Elevate.podcast. I'm your host, Danny Morrison. In our last episode, we began a powerful conversation about the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case, which ended segregation in public schools back in 1954. While we commemorate the 70th anniversary of that decision this year, we know the work of empowering and uplifting our Black community through education is not done. So I'm excited to continue our conversation today. Guiding today's discussion once again is Dr. Abdimalik Bull. Dr. Bull, we're really looking forward to continuing this important conversation. So I'll let you dive right in.
We are creators. We decide what goes.
Thank you, Danny. I'm excited as well about picking up where we left off. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce our very special panel members to any new viewers. First, it's an honor to welcome California's Secretary of State, a dear friend and mentor, Dr. Shirley Weber. Dr. Weber is California's first Black Secretary of State and only the 5th African American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's history.
Thank you.
Dr. Adam Clark is the president of the California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators and currently serves as the superintendent of Mount Diablo Unified School District.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Edward Bush, president of Cosumnes River College and co-founder of African American Male Education and Leadership Development Network, AMEND. Dr. Bush has more than 25 years experience in higher education, including 23 years in the California Community Colleges system alone.
Thank you.
We also have with us the illustrious Pam Haynes, a member of the California Community College Board of Governors, the first African American to serve in that role as a trustee. She also serves as trustee of the Los Rios Community College Board. She has more than 20 years experience guiding and serving higher education institutions and lived through Brown versus Board.
Thank you.
And to round off our panel, we have Dr. Luke Wood, who is the president of Cal State University, Sacramento, becoming the youngest permanent president in all of the nation's four-year public colleges and universities. He was also appointed by the state senate to serve on the California Racial Equity Commission. He's a founding theorist, a publisher, and researcher. You may know him for his latest work on race lighting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Let's continue the conversation. We mentioned quite a bit just the historical missteps of Brown versus Board, and then also the current challenges that exist structurally, systemically, and institutionally. What is, as a career educator who's not, as the kids would say nowadays, true to this, not new to this, what's the outlook on the racial equity issues that face Black students in education?
You know, those outlooks are really, it's difficult to predict what's going to happen. It's going to be a difficult task for us to really right this ship, I think. It's going to take all of our educators working in one accord, if they can, and they must, to accomplish that. That those who've been on the battlefield for a long time have to basically once again stay there and struggle through it. It is possible. It can be done, and it has to be done. It has to be. We have to move forward. There's a big push to push many of our kids to Black HBCUs, and you can't deny the excellence of HBCUs with every child. And so it becomes important. We have to figure out in California, because we're funding these institutions, we pay for them, what is required and must advocate for it. We have enough right now, I think, educated Black folks to really determine what happens to our children if we're serious. We got enough administrators, we got presidents of universities, we've got trustees on boards, we've got principals, we've got retired educators. We have a cadre of folks who understand this system. But I think it's going to be imperative that we call upon them statewide to basically begin to address this critical issue. And no one can really address it but us. Those of us who've been in the system, who've worked in it, who've seen the failures, the frustrations, and realize that when Black folks don't achieve, it is a deficit to the state. It is a loss of resources, a loss of money. When you have folks who graduate and who do well, California prospers from every person they've ever educated in the state of California. We have prospered. When our kids leave the state, they oftentimes don't come back. And that's like a brain drain in California. So we have to recognize the fact that we have this unique opportunity, that it's not just one of us, but it's all of us, to basically make this system respond to our needs very directly and on behalf of our children.
So if I can put a fine point on that, and it's from the perspective of we are now on boards, we're on commissions.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe if we're not on a board and we're not on a commission, our issues will not get addressed.
No, not at all.
If we are, then we have to speak up and speak truth from the dais, no matter how that looks, how it sounds, because we are the only ones sometimes that speak up on behalf of Black students. And I'm speaking of community colleges right now, but on behalf of Black students. It's important because we're at a policy level where that's where some of this change has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but some of it has to happen.
Brother says if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
You're on the menu. One of my sayings too.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to contribute was, as my role as the president of the California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators, not only are we looking to bring more educators into the field and into those positions, we're also trying to work with folks so that when they get those positions, that not only that they keep them, but that they're effective in doing it. I think we've heard enough evidence here that when there are successful programs and when African American students are being successful, they're going to be met with some sort of resistance or some sort of way to dismantle those. And so we have to make sure that we put systems in place that are going to withstand those those attacks.
Absolutely. Dr. Bush?
Yeah, man, I'm thinking there's a lot that's going through my mind. And I'm still trying to crystallize kind of how to put a period around those thoughts. I think one, there has to be a certain level of individual accountability to the work. When we can each look to someone else to do it, put responsibility on the next person. But I think we have to look at how are we impacting the lives of Black people within the space and places in which I control. So it's important, I think, for me as a leader to lead with our ancestors in mind, to factor in to Black culture, to factor in Black resistance and Black brilliance and Black excellence, and make sure that that shows up in every decision, every action, and every initiative that I make as a college president at Cosumnes River College. To not see someone who cares about you in the classroom, who understands where you come from, demoralizes your spirit and separates you from your identity. And so when we wonder why Black students are not being successful, we have to go back because there's been a separation of the Black identity, and you're trying to navigate school as someone else and not as yourself. And so I think our work as educators is to restore the consciousness, the Black consciousness of Black students, to reconnect them back to their identity. And it's through that identity they find their brilliance and their genius. And most importantly, it's through that identity where you find your purpose that makes education relevant to you again.
Absolutely. Trustee Haynes?
It's hard to follow, Dr. Bush. It is. We have to have a passion for this work. And what I was actually thinking about at the time was at Los Rios, we have a celebration that is focused on African descendant students. And we have an opportunity for them to talk to us about what their stories were, but we also talk about our own stories to help them understand that those on the campuses that they have relied on in the Umoja program, the Amen program, the RISE program, truly care about them. And when they tell their stories, they speak to that. Those who have cared about them to get to a point where they're now graduating either with an associate degree or they're transferring to a 4-year. And how critically important that stage was for them. That's what we need on every single campus, is to have that cadre of folks who care.
Thank you. Dr. Wood?
So I guess from my perspective, part of what we have to do is to create an underground railroad through our institutions. So, and I mean that on multiple different levels. So when I'm talking with faculty members, and I know that they care about Black people and they want to see Black people be successful, I say, it just can't be you, because one person is not going to be enough. You've got to bring folks together. So you need to have your person in financial aid. You need to have your person in counseling. You need to have your person in the math department, right? You have to have your people who you're not sending a student to a service or a location, but you're sending them to somebody who you know will care about them and care about their success the same ways that you do. And I think about that as an Underground Railroad, because Underground Railroad was this network, right, in the South to help those who were enslaved in the South to make their way to freedom in the North. But you couldn't just stop at any old place along the way. You had to go to the people and the locations that you knew were going to protect you and shepherd you to safety. And so that's always been part of our community. But at the same time, the goal of the Underground Railroad was not the Underground Railroad. It was emancipation and freedom. And so you have to have temporary strategies as you're also working towards a long-term goal. So that's what that looks like at the personal level. That's also why at the programmatic level, why we have programs like Amend and our Black Honors College, right? Because you're trading that at that level. And then at the next level above that, that's why you have to have your HBCUs, your PBIs, and hopefully forthcoming, your Black serving institutions, because we have to create railroads for our students, because the vast majority of our institutions are not prepared to serve Black students and will fail them. In order for a student to truly learn in the classroom, in order for them to go and use a support service on campus, you're not going to go to someone who you think doesn't care about you. And so we oftentimes flip these things into blaming students, blaming their families, blaming their communities. It must be something about them. They're lazy. They don't care. They're not really here for school. They're only here for the financial aid. These are the kind of negative perspectives that people have about our Black students. And so I don't want to send a Black student to somebody who thinks that they don't belong there. I want to send them to somebody who's going to fight for them to be able to succeed. So we have to create and be intentional about creating these networks, because otherwise we're going to be relegating our people to a future that is uncertain.
So one of the benefits that I've had as a former community college transfer student is, to that point that you mentioned, Dr. Wood, I was part of San Diego Mesa College's, it's called Mesa Academy program, which later became the Moja program. And it was the first time ever that I walked into a space and I had a Black male counselor. I took an English course from the Black perspective. The first time I ever heard about Mansa Musa. First time I ever heard of Timbuktu. And just the literature, Bell Hooks, right? And just the impact that it had on me. So much so that I ended up becoming a Black Studies minor, because I took so many courses in Black Studies. Professor Mayas, Professor Lewis down there in San Diego. And so that I can see the transformation as a 19-year-old male who, and we've witnessed a lot through our K-12 system, that racism just erodes the humanity out of you when you're neglected in the curriculum, when you're neglected in the experience, when you're neglected in the representation. I just felt a resurgence of self, my self-efficacy, my self-esteem. You were going through the curriculum, going through the book. I had a Black chemistry professor. So I wanted to be a scientist. Everything that I could see, I wanted to be. And so what impact does this have, and what opportunity does our California community college system benefit our students? You mentioned financial aid, the wraparound services, the Moja program, the Amend program, the charters that are up and down throughout the system. And under your leadership, Trustee Haynes, we've seen a historic investments as a state line item budget. Right there with California Highway Patrol is Emoja, is Amend. We have state line items supporting these Black initiatives. So can you all talk about why it's such an important part? And I know Dr. Wood and Dr. Bush, in your research, you mentioned the impact of Black males and the entry point to community college to serve as the propeller to higher education.
Well, we know, we're looking at the data, that 75%, and it vacillates between 73 to 76, depending on what year you're looking at, are all African Americans who enroll in public post-secondary education in the state of California is enrolled in a California community college. So just that number alone gives you the sense of the responsibility or the weight that the community college has in producing Black students who go on to get a bachelor's degree, who go on to the workforce that we said earlier, will be contributing members in the society. Like if the community college breaks down in its responsibility to successfully serve Black students, then we will continue to see the continued cycle and perpetuation of poverty that exists in many of our communities. So the responsibility and the opportunity that the community college system presents is real and is huge. Also think that California Community College can really be ground zero in looking at how to create a focus and targeted spaces for Black students. So you see many colleges have Black empowerment centers, but to make that as a high impact practice that should be emulated across the state should be something that we put front and center. There shouldn't be any community college that serve Black students that don't have a UMOJA program or don't have an amend charter. Those things should be considered kind of baseline support services that exists at our institution. So you're seeing that grow, you're seeing that investment, you're seeing that attention. I think kudos to the community college system for leaning in to that type of agenda. Then lastly, we talk about this conversation of Brown versus Board and disparities in resources and how on the face of that, that's a racist practice. So we need to apply that same concepts to how funding is done for post-secondary education in the state of California. I mentioned 75% of all African Americans who attend public post-secondary education is enrolled in California Community College. It's similar for Latinx students, but California Community College receives the least amount of funding in comparison to CSU and UC. We've seen some growth, some more recent investment in California Community College, but there's still a disparity. Now, the system that serves the most Black and brown students is the system that's getting the least amount of money. And I think that's an important point to bring up as we're talking about Brown versus Board of Education, because that was sparked by a resource issue of Black students not getting same access to be able to go on and as they navigate school as their white counterparts. And so I think the community college is, while we're in best position in terms of enrollment, we're not in best position in terms of resources and steady investment to meet that challenge.
Yeah, so if I could just chime in on what we're doing. In the Mount Diablo Unified School District, we're 3% African American, so we don't have a large African American population, but we are 42% Latinx. And so we have a community college right across the street from one of our high schools, Diablo Valley College. And we, in Mount Diablo, we have a College Now program where sophomores apply to it. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking for those students that don't necessarily see themselves going to college. And then what they do is they spend their junior and senior year on the campus, earning college credit and high school credit. And it has a close to 100% success rate of them finishing the program. And the majority of those students go on to school, go on to post K-12, whether they finish up at the community college or whether they go into a 4-year school. We're also expanding our dual enrollment offerings, which takes some navigations. We got to work with our local unions and things of that nature, and with credentialing and whatnot. But there's a huge need for it, and there's excitement around it. So again, I'm impressed with what the community colleges have to offer to our students and the outreach that they do and the resources that they do provide. And I think that as our students are really looking at their options, they're taking the community college route. And they're finding that there's far more opportunities than they realized as they go into that.
Absolutely. I remember opportunities is an excellent word to describe that, because I remember as a counselor at Mesa College, when I came back full circle, transfer San Diego State, got my master's, went through the counseling program. I would see students participate in dual enrollment. The first course that I taught was dual enrollment. And you would see students that wanted to be engineer. You get, Dr. Weber knows this, below the 8 and above the 8 freeway, there's a socioeconomic disparity, right? Students above the 8 freeway would come in, they'd take pre-cal, they took a trig class, 4 or 5 levels ready, transfer ready. And you do the educational plan. And then you get a student below the 8 freeway and they're tested into the lowest math. And they both want to be engineers. You chart out the path for this one, 6 to 8 years. This one's 4 years. They participated from dual enrollment. They participated from certain aspects within high school, within their community colleges that gave them that leverage and that advantage. So I love the intentionality now in Vision 2030 by dual enrollment. And I love what Dr. Bush and other folks have been doing, have those intentional engagements with the institutions that do not know about these opportunities, that you can take English in your junior year and your senior year at the community college. You can take, some of these courses and almost graduate with an associate's degree, because my senior year, I was a hall monitor, I was PE, I was messing around looking for girls. Knucklehead. But I could have taken some community college courses. And that would have definitely, from a financial perspective, from a time perspective, shortened these ADT pathways that we're talking about. So Dr. Bush, I'm going to talk to Dr. Bush. I know you've done some intentional outreach too at the university level with some of these community college programs. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I want to say that unquestionably, the best students we have at the university in terms of academic performance and in terms of diversity come from our community colleges. So for us, it's a priority to create as many agreements as we can into our Black Honors College, into the university as a whole, that partner with our community colleges. So I want to talk about this same thing, but from a slightly different lens, right? So our best and brightest and most hardworking and diverse students are coming from our community colleges. And then you just heard in high school, right? If you get a chance to take a class at a community college and do a dual enrollment, it might be the first time that someone tells you your college material, right? So it's not just that I can go to college, but I can succeed in college as well. But many years ago, that's what I did. And one of the things that was really important for me about that is I had been in high school a really good math student, had a great math teacher, went off to college at Sacramento State and tested into remedial mathematics and had a terrible experience. So I had one college level class that I had to take in mathematics. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, second senior year, still never took that class, right? There was even one time where I enrolled in the class and I got it and I was like, oh man, this environment, I'm not going to do well. So I decided, I was like, you know what, let me try. I keep hearing from my friends that they're taking these really good classes in stats at the community college. Let me go try that out. So I enrolled in a community colleges in this local area and I took a statistics class. The first time that I ever had a class in stats, the first time that I was like, okay, I'm going to see what happens here. I've heard this good. I had an amazing experience. It was one of the best classes I ever took. And I went from, as a remedial math student, to a person who felt comfortable in statistics, and it changed the course of my career. Because then when I went off to my graduate program, I was intentional about taking every single class in stats that I could, and I went on to become a professor who focused in teaching classes on advanced research statistics, from being a remedial math student to being a professor of it, and it was all changed at the community college.
Now, I just want to thank every single one of you. We talked about demonstrated outlook for success. You've all demonstrated in your positions the energy and the spirit of our ancestors. I think of folks that were literally killed for being literate. And now today, the positions that you hold and the titles that you represent and the institutions that you're at, you're carrying the energy and the spirit and their intentionality of the work that needs to be done. So I want to just thank all of you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of those who await us in our legacy and on behalf of those who have really fought for us to be here today, to see and witness, whether it's from the statewide perspective, whether it's from the K-12 perspective, the college, the trustees, presidents in the classroom, researchers, scholars, practitioners, actualizing this work and giving us hope. That to me is hope. So thank you for having that consciousness. Thank you for leading with integrity and equity and justice. Diversity is an ideal, as they say. Equity is a strategy. Inclusion is a process. But justice is the outcome. And you all have fought for justice in all of your roles. So I want to thank you all for joining this very, very powerful panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
The California Community College system is uniquely committed to uplifting and empowering Black students so they can find success. And I can't thank Chancellor Sonia Christian enough for facilitating the conversation we've had here today. I hope that every person watching feels as inspired as I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bull. This discussion has opened my eyes to things that I needed to see and hear. And I know many of you watching are feeling the same. Understanding where we've come from helps us plan for where we're going. And if today's conversation has inspired you to explore the possibilities and opportunities waiting for you through higher education, you need to go check out ICanGoToCollege.com. From there, click on Black and African American Student Success, and you'll get a ton of great information on career education programs, transfer opportunities to CSUs, UCs, HBCUs, and other four-year institutions, financial aid opportunities, additional support services, and more. That's ICanGoToCollege.com. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember that when you know where to start, nothing is impossible. Because to educate is to elevate.
We are the painters of our world.